The avoidant feels something real for you. It's not fake or performed or manufactured. When they say they love you, there's truth in it. They experience attachment, longing, even a form of devotion. But here's the devastating reality. Their love exists completely separate from caring about your well-being, your needs, or your experience of the relationship. They can love you deeply while being entirely indifferent to whether you're happy, hurt, or slowly dying inside from their emotional unavailability. This isn't conscious cruelty. It's a fundamental disconnect in how their attachment system operates. The avoidant has learned to compartmentalize love from care, feeling from action, attachment from responsibility. They experience the emotion without the accompanying behaviors that make love functional or sustaining in any real way. You're left in the confusing position of being loved by someone who won't show up for you, who won't prioritize you, who won't adjust their behavior even when it's clearly damaging you. Understanding this profound split between love and care is absolutely essential because it explains why all your efforts to make them see how much they're hurting you fail completely. The love without empathy split. The avoidant can feel love for you as an abstract emotion, a general sense of attachment and preference for your presence. But this love doesn't activate empathy for your suffering or distress. When you're in pain because of their behavior, they register it intellectually, but don't feel it in their body the way emotionally connected people do. Your tears, your pleading, your distress might make them uncomfortable, but it doesn't penetrate deep enough to motivate genuine change in their patterns. Subscribe to understand the deeper psychology behind these patterns and learn how to protect yourself from relationships that damage while claiming to love. This split between love and empathy means the avoidant can watch you suffer without experiencing the visceral discomfort that would normally compel someone to stop causing harm. They might acknowledge intellectually that you're upset, but this acknowledgement remains cognitive rather than emotional. The avoidant's love is sterile, existing in their head as a concept rather than in their nervous system as a felt experience that includes your well-being. The absence of empathy also means the avoidant doesn't anticipate how their actions will affect you. They make decisions based solely on their own comfort, without considering the emotional consequences. They cancel plans, withdraw affection, or create distance based entirely on their internal state. When you point out the hurt they've caused, they're often genuinely surprised because their decision-making process doesn't include your emotional experience as a relevant variable. The obligation avoidance system. The avoidant has structured their psychology around avoiding obligation, and this includes the obligations that typically come with loving someone. In healthy relationships, loving someone creates natural responsibility for their well-being. But the avoidant experiences these obligations as threats to their autonomy. They love you, but they refuse to be responsible to you. They want emotional connection without the behavioral expectations that make connection sustainable. This avoidance of obligation means the avoidant treats their love as sufficient unto itself. They feel the emotion, and in their mind, that should be enough. They don't understand why you need them to demonstrate love through actions or consistency. When you express needs for them to show love through behavior, the avoidant experiences this as you not appreciating their feelings. The obligation avoidance also manifests as the avoidant getting angry when you expect them to care about your needs. They interpret your needs as demands on their freedom. The avoidant wants to love you on their terms, which means loving you when it's convenient and doesn't require them to adjust anything. They refuse to accept that real love includes obligation. The compartmentalized feeling structure. The avoidant keeps their feelings for you separate from their daily decision-making and behavior. They can feel intense love when thinking about you in the abstract, when they're alone and missing you, when there's no actual demand for presence. But this love doesn't transfer into their choices when faced with situations requiring them to prioritize you. The feeling exists in isolation, disconnected from behavioral systems. The avoidant has mastered feeling something deeply while ensuring that feeling has no impact on their actions. This compartmentalization means the avoidant can be completely sincere when expressing love while simultaneously treating you with indifference. They're not lying about the feeling, but that feeling is contained, prevented from influencing the parts of their psyche that control behavior. The avoidant can tell you they love you and then disappear for weeks. These aren't contradictions in their experience because feeling and behavior exist in separate psychological spaces. The compartmentalized structure also explains why the avoidant can't understand your frustration. From their perspective, they've told you they love you, so why are you unhappy? They can't grasp that love without corresponding, care is worthless. The avoidant believes the feeling is the relationship, that their internal experience is sufficient. They genuinely don't understand that you need the love to be integrated with action. The self-centered love experience. The avoidant's love for you is fundamentally about them, not about you. They love how you make them feel. They love having you as an option. They love the idea of being loved by you. But they don't love you as a separate person with needs, vulnerabilities, and an interior life that deserves consideration. Their love is narcissistic in the sense that it centers entirely on their experience. You exist in their mind as an object that provides comfort, validation, or security, rather than as a subject with your own legitimate needs and experiences that matter equally to theirs. This self-centered love means the avoidant never really considers what it's like to be you in relationship with them. They don't think about how their inconsistency affects you, how their emotional unavailability creates insecurity, how their refusal to commit damages your sense of worth. Your experience is simply not part of their calculus. The avoidant is entirely focused on managing their own anxiety, maintaining their own comfort, protecting their own autonomy. You're a supporting character in their narrative rather than the co-author of a shared story. The avoidant loves you, but only as you relate to them, not as you exist independently with your own needs that deserve equal weight and consideration. The self-centered nature also manifests in the avoidant's inability to make sacrifices for the relationship. Sacrifice requires centering someone else's needs above your own comfort, and the avoidant cannot do this. They will not adjust their behavior, their schedule, their priorities, or their defenses to accommodate you or improve the relationship. Every decision is made based on what serves them, what feels safe to them, what protects their autonomy. Your happiness or suffering is irrelevant to their decision-making process because you exist in their psychology as an extension of themselves rather than as a separate person whose well-being matters independently. The protection over connection priority. The avoidant will always choose self-protection over connection with you, even when they love you, even when choosing protection means causing you significant harm. Their attachment system is organized around the principle that safety comes through distance and independence. When they face a choice between opening up to you and protecting themselves through withdrawal, protection wins every time. This isn't a conscious calculation. It's an automatic response pattern so deeply embedded that it overrides their love for you without them even recognizing the choice they're making. The avoidant loves you, but they love their defenses more. This priority means that whenever you become a perceived threat to their autonomy or emotional safety, the love becomes irrelevant. You're no longer the person they care about. You become the danger they need to escape. The avoidant can shift from warmth to coldness instantly when their protection mechanism activates. All the love they felt moments before gets locked away behind defenses, and they treat you with the indifference or hostility they'd show any threat. Once they regulate back down and feel safe again, the love returns, and they genuinely don't understand why you're still hurt. They've already moved on emotionally, unaware that their protection over connection pattern is systematically destroying your trust and the foundation of the relationship itself. The priority of protection also means the avoidant will sabotage good things rather than risk vulnerability. Even when the relationship is healthy, even when you're being understanding and patient, the avoidant will create distance or problems because closeness itself feels like danger. They'd rather destroy something good than face the vulnerability of sustained intimacy. The avoidant loves you, but not enough to override their terror of being truly known and potentially abandoned. They'll sacrifice the relationship to maintain their defenses, and they'll do so while claiming they love you, unable to see that their actions contradict their words in ways that make the words meaningless. The conditional availability pattern. The avoidant's love is available only under specific conditions that carefully ensure their comfort and control at all times. They can access loving feelings when they're at a safe distance, when you're not asking for anything, when there's no pressure or expectation. But the moment you need something, the moment you express vulnerability or request support, the love becomes inaccessible. The avoidant pulls back, becomes cold, treats your need as an imposition. Their love for you is conditional on you not requiring them to demonstrate that love through care or action. You can be loved as long as you don't need them to actually be a loving partner in any meaningful or consistent way. This conditional availability creates a maddening dynamic where you can feel loved when nothing is asked of the avoidant, but the instant you have a legitimate need, the love disappears. You learn to suppress your needs, to avoid asking for support, to pretend you're fine even when you're not, because requesting anything causes the person who supposedly loves you to withdraw. The avoidant has trained you to make yourself smaller, to need less, to accept emotional scraps, all while they maintain they love you. The conditioning is so effective that you begin to question whether your needs are valid, whether you're asking too much, whether the problem is your expectations rather than their failure to show up consistently for someone they claim to care about. The conditional nature of their availability also means the avoidant can only love you when they're in control of every aspect of the relationship. If you try to set boundaries, if you express hurt about their behavior, if you demand change or consistency, the love evaporates immediately. The avoidant loves you only when you're accommodating, understanding, patient, and undemanding. The moment you assert yourself or hold them accountable, you're no longer lovable to them. You're a problem to be managed or escaped. The love they feel is contingent on you playing a specific role in their emotional economy, and stepping out of that role means losing access to whatever limited affection they're capable of providing. The emotional investment imbalance. The avoidant expects you to invest heavily in the relationship while they remain minimally invested themselves. They want you to prioritize them, accommodate their needs, understand their limitations, and remain patient through their inconsistency. But they offer almost nothing reciprocal. The love they feel doesn't translate into investment of time, energy, emotional availability, or commitment. They love you in a way that costs them nothing, while expecting you to pour yourself into a relationship that systematically depletes you. The imbalance is profound and unsustainable, yet the avoidant sees nothing wrong with it. This investment imbalance means you're doing all the work to maintain the relationship, while the avoidant just shows up occasionally to receive the benefits of your effort. You initiate difficult conversations, you process conflicts, you try to understand their attachment style, you adjust your behavior to accommodate their triggers. The avoidant does none of this reciprocal work. They expect you to be endlessly understanding of their limitations while they make no effort to understand you, your needs, or how their behavior affects you. The love they claim to feel involves zero effort, zero growth, zero willingness to be uncomfortable for the sake of the relationship. The imbalance also manifests in who gets to have needs and whose needs get prioritized. The avoidant's need for space, independence, and emotional distance is treated as sacred and non-negotiable. Your need for connection, consistency, and emotional presence is treated as excessive and problematic. The avoidant loves you, but believes their needs matter more than yours, that their comfort is more important than your happiness, that maintaining their defenses is more valuable than building genuine intimacy. You exist to serve their emotional regulation while they contribute nothing to yours. They love you, but they don't care enough about you to invest equally in creating something mutual and balanced. The consequence blindness. The avoidant is blind to the consequences of their behavior on you and the relationship. They can see the immediate results of their actions, but not the cumulative damage they're causing. Each individual withdrawal, each dismissal of your needs, each failure to show up might seem minor to them. They don't recognize that these incidents accumulate into a pattern that's destroying your trust, your sense of security, and your well-being. The avoidant loves you, but they can't see that their love is meaningless if it's accompanied by behavior that systematically harms you. This consequence blindness means the avoidant is always surprised when you reach your limit. They didn't notice you pulling away emotionally. They didn't register your increasing unhappiness. They didn't see that their pattern was pushing you toward the door. When you finally enforce boundaries or end the relationship, The avoidant experiences it as sudden and inexplicable. They point to their love as if it should have been enough, unable to comprehend that love without care, without consideration, without behavioral change is insufficient. They loved you, but they destroyed the relationship through neglect they couldn't perceive. The blindness also prevents the avoidant from learning from repeated relationship failures. They carry their pattern into every relationship, causing the same damage, ending things the same way, and never connecting their behavior to the outcomes. The avoidant believes the problem is always the partner's excessive needs or inability to accept them as they are. They can't see that their refusal to care about how they impact others, their inability to translate love into caring action, is the consistent factor in every failed relationship. They love you, but they'll lose you without ever understanding that their love wasn't the problem. Their failure to care was. The fantasy relationship maintenance. The avoidant loves an idealized version of the relationship that exists primarily in their imagination. They love the idea of having you, the fantasy of connection without vulnerability, the concept of relationship without the messy reality of two people's needs intersecting. In their mind, the relationship is perfect when there are no demands, no conflicts, no requirements for emotional presence. They love this fantasy intensely and mistake it for loving you. But the fantasy has little connection to the actual relationship that exists, the one where you have needs and feelings and reactions to their behavior. This fantasy maintenance means the avoidant can feel deep love for you while completely ignoring the reality of your experience. In their imagination, you're happy with the minimal scraps of attention they provide. In their fantasy, their love is sufficient without any corresponding actions. In their idealized version, you don't need anything they're not comfortable giving. The avoidant loves this imaginary version of the relationship and gets confused when the real you, with real needs and real hurt, doesn't match the fantasy. They love who they imagine you are, someone who wants exactly what they're capable of providing and nothing more. The fantasy also allows the avoidant to avoid the reality that relationships require work, compromise, and discomfort. In their idealized version, love just flows naturally without anyone having to change or grow or face their fears. The avoidant loves this easy, comfortable fantasy, but rejects the actual work of being in relationship with a real person. When reality intrudes and you express needs or hurt, the avoidant retreats back into fantasy. They continue loving the imaginary relationship while neglecting the real one until the real one inevitably ends. Then they'll carry the fantasy forward, believing they lost something precious, never recognizing that what they loved never actually existed outside their own mind. The identity protection mechanism. The avoidant's refusal to care about you despite loving you is ultimately about protecting their identity as independent and self-sufficient. Caring about someone creates dependency, obligation, and vulnerability. If the avoidant allows themselves to genuinely care about your well-being, to be affected by your pain, to adjust their behavior based on your needs, they would have to acknowledge that they need relationship. They would have to admit that they're not actually fine alone, that connection matters, that other people's experiences should influence their choices. This acknowledgement would shatter the defensive identity they've spent their life constructing piece by piece. The identity protection means the avoidant must maintain emotional distance, even from someone they love. They can feel the love, but they cannot allow that love to change them, open them, or create dependency. Caring about you would mean admitting you matter enough to affect their life, and that admission feels like losing themselves. The avoidant has built their entire sense of self on not needing anyone, and allowing themselves to truly care about you would undermine that foundation. So they love you while refusing to let that love mean anything, while ensuring it stays superficial enough that it doesn't threaten their protected identity. They love you, but caring about you would cost them who they believe themselves to be, and they're not willing to pay that price for anyone or anything.